Okay, calm down.
Welcome, David Cross. Is it hard today, in today's context in Hollywood and in the comedy scene, to be critical of Israel?
I mean, maybe for some people, I don't give a shit. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't. I don't fear any backlash. I don't care. To me, this is the morally ethical right thing to do. So yeah, I don't have a problem doing that.
What are your thoughts on the people who have condemned Jonathan Glazer?
I assume they're being reactionary and speaking from a very emotional place, and I understand that. I just don't share that. As I pride myself in the ability to remove emotion from decisions I make about morality and ethics.
Have you faced any backlash or criticism about this issue?
Not that I know of, but I stay off social media. I mean, I use it to tell people where I'm doing stuff, but I don't have it on my phone or on my computer. I don't use it. I live in Brooklyn. I got a family. I'm mostly dealing with them, taking my kid to school, and occasionally I'll say something on stage where the people will go, "Oh," but that's really the only response I'm aware of. I don't care. It doesn't mean anything to me.
I guess you have already created a career and following where your being outspoken is built into it. You were raised Jewish. I know that you were raised Jewish, but you consider yourself an atheist, right?
Yes, because I am. Technically.
Yeah. You self-identify as an atheist.
The science is
an atheist, right? Were you raised with Zionism?
Not through my parents, but at the temple, and that was a part of it, and I was certainly aware of it, but it wasn't like that wasn't a big deal at home, and I was raised Reformed, so it's, the major holidays, a handful of other things, and that was pretty much the extent of it. It's just cultural stuff. It was, like for a lot of Jews, it's, or American Jews at least, it's, it's tribal, it's cultural, it was that stuff.
Were you bar mitzvahed?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay. I wasn't bar mitzvahed.
It was a deal I made with my mom that I would get, once I would get bar mitzvahed and I'd, get confirmed, go through Sunday school, and then I could do whatever I wanted, which is exactly what I did.
Plus you get a lot of presents, right?
No, I didn't.
Really?
It's a long story, but no, I got about say about $320, and then my dad took that.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
I'm sorry.
Not a very good look.
Borrowed it. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. It's not a very good look for our people.
Well, that was just him particular.
Your dad did.
Was just
okay.
Yeah.
Not because he's Jewish.
No.
I just want to make that clear.
No, he was an asshole.
But he gave you British citizenship, right?
I got it recently, and yes, he's from Leeds, England, and I work in the UK quite a bit and have for the last 20 years, and I wanted the dual citizenship for obvious reasons. That became more urgent in the last 7 years, but I didn't want to have to go through him. I've been estranged from him since I was a teenager, and I don't want to contact him, but I finally found a service in Scotland that was able to acquire it with just the handful of certifications that I had, and so now, yes, I am a dual citizen, but I didn't have to contact him, so that's good.
Right. Nice special program in Scotland for children of asshole dads.
They help you or help one do that if if your parents are dead or whatever it is. You're like, all I have
Right.
is a photocopy of my mom's marriage certificate. Will that work? And they just dug through all
Yeah.
the records and got it.
So, do you remember becoming critical of Israel, becoming involved in this issue? Did you have an aha moment? Is this a special issue for you, or is it more just part of your commitment to human
Yeah,
rights?
it's not. There's no. I mean, I've known Israel as you know uh, has been corrupt, and and it's an apartheid state, and there's just there's no argument you can have with me that comes from an emotional place that's going to change my mind about facts. And if we're going
Right.
to understand the universally understood definition of what is apartheid, well, that's Israel. It fits. I don't. There's nothing to argue, and I don't care. I don't feel tribal. I don't give a shit. Uh, I don't. And that applies to everything. I don't, get upset about, white men are victims, and I'm a white man. I should be upset, or Jews, or whatever, bald people. Just a cursory understanding of history and in recent history and what how Israel came to be and all that. There's right and there's wrong. There's you
Right.
can't bend it to your will.
Did you ever have a positive opinion of Israel that was kind of disrupted by reality, or did you never really?
I mean, yeah, the concept. If things were equitable, but they're not. The concept is fine. I don't have a problem with that. Uh, there should have been a two-state solution a long time ago. The Oslo Accords should have been, not blatantly scuppered. But yeah, I mean, if on paper it could work, but it didn't. I don't have
Yeah.
like the kind of hatred that Israelis have for Palestinians. I don't have that for any you know culture or ethnicity. I wasn't raised to hate, to see this thing as my enemy.
You tweeted at one point in response to David Zirin, who writes about sports for The Nation. David Zirin wrote, "As a Jew, I want to welcome anyone who wants to criticize a lobbying coalition funded by arms manufacturers, evangelical Christians, and allies of the right-wing edge of Israeli politics. Criticizing AIPAC is not anti-Semitic, and it's absurd that this even needs to be said." And you tweeted, quote tweeted that, you said, "Part of what led me from Judaism to atheism was becoming self-aware while observing the hypocrisy, willful ignorance, and blindness to their obvious double standard that my fellow Jews at Temple displayed, echoed, and supported, pure tribalism."
Yeah, sure.
How did that manifest this willful ignorance? Do you remember at Temple?
Yeah, it's the hypocrisy that uh, anybody in any religion that purports to be these, humane and caring and selfless and generous and loving and whatever that, and then to see it not being, just to see the opposite, just the hypocrisy of it, specifically the idea of anti, not consumerism, but the idea that there was always this kind of there, I remember also at the time I was young, but there was a whole concentration on Ethiopian Jews and getting them kind of repatriated somewhere where they could practice, and um, but nobody wanted to have them in their house or sponsor them, and Atlanta, when I was a kid, is very, there was a very uh, hospitable, genteel racism. It was
Mm,
kind. It was a certain kind of racism, and also the status that people were um, preoccupied with, who had the most jewels, or what they were wearing, or uh, what they would talk about immediately after, you'd have this whole service, and the rabbi would be, you know, giving this homily, and we're all, it's about kindness and generosity or whatever, and then everybody's nodding along, and then, okay, the service is over, Shabbat Shalom, you kiss the person to your left and your right, and then they're just immediately talking about, stupid, racist, shitty stuff because they're shitty.
Racist against like whom?
I mean, it would be either it was not that I want to make clear I didn't hear this every time, but these are things that you would observe or overhear, on occasion, and it was enough of those things, enough of those times, whether it was, just dismissive of certain groups or whatever it was. There wasn't like a specific time, or event. It was just accumulative over many, many years.
I grew up in New York City, so I used to actually not really identify as Jewish because I wasn't religious. I'm not religious. But then over time, I started identifying as Jewish because I realized that, well, for two reasons, honestly. One is that I felt like it was important for people who are Jewish to show the world that Israel doesn't represent all Jews. And also, I realized that I do come from a particular kind of like secular Jewish background and culture. I wonder, I mean, growing up in Atlanta, were you seen as Jewish? Like,
Oh yeah,
did
yeah.
it,
It was.
yeah, like you kind of don't have a choice,
Yeah, it
right?
was. I mean, it was until I went to this uh, high school, a school for the arts in town. We moved actually, but I was in Roswell, Georgia, which is like a very rural suburb, but it was pretty detached from the city back then. Now it's all one big sprawling thing. But yeah, I mean, it was clear. I was, I looked weird. I had a Jew fro. I had thick glasses. I mean, I clearly didn't look like the kind of standard Southern Baptist white kids that were at the schools.
And so how did people react to that or treat you?
Oh, I mean, for the most part, it was fine. I definitely, there were several uh, anti-Semitic things and things said to me, or behaviors towards me or my family. But it wasn't like a daily thing, and nobody threw rocks through a window or anything like that. But it was, and some of the teachers said some stunningly ignorant things. But I mean, they're in retrospect, now that I am older, I'm like, oh, teachers are dumb people too, But when you're a kid, you're like, you look up to them as sources of authority and or figures of authority and the source of information and how we should be, living our lives. And there were some, yeah, shockingly ignorant things too. But it wasn't like a daily thing. But there were plenty of, I had this guy. I'd have to ask my sister but there was this guy who occasionally would throw pennies or dimes at me and my sister, and they like, pick it up, Jew, pick it up, Jew. Yeah,
Oh my God. A classmate. I'm
a guy
hoping
in
not a
school.
teacher.
No, not a teacher. No, no, no. Oh,
Yeah.
that would.
That would be
Oh, my
next
mom would have
level.
freaked out. No, it was a class. It was a guy.
Yeah.
You know, and it was, you look back on it, he was trying to impress his friends and stuff, and who knows what. But I mean, there were, plenty of incidences, but I never feared for my safety. Really, it wasn't that kind of thing.
So what politicized you, more generally speaking?
Uh, I mean, I would probably think it's mostly my mom's influence, but it was never like a proactive thing. It was just her uh, rational take on things, and I don't know why, but I uh, have been skeptical about stuff from a young age, uh, and in part what I read, um, and I don't know. I was interested in it.
Any books in particular or writers
Um,
or
I mean, well, when I was, oh gosh, I probably would have been about 10, well, let's see, maybe 12, but I read a book that my mom had, and it was written by Jerry Rubin of the Chicago Seven, and and that was really kind of an altering thing. Like e- even though we look at them as young, they were adults, and even though they, were when I was 12, and it was just a really cool uh, thing. And when I was really really young, the Vietnam War, it just permeated everything. The Vietnam War and Watergate, and I wasn't really old enough to fully understand, but it it's all anybody was focused on, and so I'm sure that had something to do with it. I don't know why why I'm such a news junkie kind of person, but I suppose it had quite a bit to do with my mom just sort of steering me that way, not consciously, but just I read early at an early age, and you know, and she was very encouraging. Just read whatever you want. I'm not going to tell you what to read, what not to read. And so I read what I wanted, and I read a lot. And, there wasn't a whole lot to do in Roswell. Um,
is your mom, does she consider herself an activist or a politicized person or a leftist?
oh, she's not. She's not an activist at all in any way, and never was. She just had strong opinions, and we would talk about that. I think she was thrilled to have somebody to talk to too about that stuff, because my other sisters weren't interested. She didn't have very many friends, and so I think it bonded us in a way.
Shifting gears, I'm really enjoying your
Oh,
podcast. It's
thanks.
great.
I'll be going down and talking to Lewis Black later.
One of the people who signed the letter condemning Jonathan Glazer was Deborah Messing, who I know you were in a film with. Did you ever talk about politics?